Kraven the Hunter, the final comic book movie of the year, has dropped in theaters, and as it turns out, this might be the worst year for comic book movies ever. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 8 theatrically released comic book movies from like 4 movies tied for the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your ranking of the theatrically released comic book movies that you saw this year. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Now, as we go into this really was a terrible year for comic book movies. There is kind of a fight for the bottom, and so there's going to be some weird discussions in the comment section because you have that one that you might hate, but you're arguing for why another terrible movie is better than it. I've already had some of those discussions on Twitter over the last 24 hours. Should be fun. Let's get started. Tied for last place, Kraven the Hunter, the laugh out loud comedy of the year, but for all the wrong reasons. And I do kind of mean that. At the Austin press screening, very early on, we all kind of realized we were watching a terrible movie and it was okay to laugh at the film. And so there was just so many laugh out loud moments in our audience from beginning to end. And all of this is because they made a really bad movie. And I don't even understand how, because it's a basic action revenge story. It's so easy to make a movie featuring Russell Crowe and Aaron Taylor Johnson running around slapping bear traps on people's heads that will make me smile for all the right reasons, and somehow they totally botched it. And so much of that is that the dialogue here is unbelievably bad. Half of Aaron Taylor Johnson's lines in the movie are, "Because I'm a hunter." He just says that the whole movie. And Russell Crowe just goes, "Because she's weak." One point in time in this movie, the main female lead in this film says something along the lines of, "Shortly afterwards, my grandmother died, and I haven't seen her since." Well, yeah, that's how that works. And it's a film that structurally is bizarre. There's so many creative choices that are just insane, where it'll be dead serious, and the next scene is someone lip syncing to a Black Sabbath piano ballad. I was in awe at how bad it was. Was I wildly entertained? Yes, I was, because I was in such a fun theater laughing at this monstrosity. But at the end of the day, it was a monstrosity. Also in last place, Madam Web. This is a film that on paper is a shockingly stupid idea for a movie. There is absolutely no demand for a prequel to the origin story for 5 D-level Spider-Man spin-off characters. But now we have a movie that is essentially that.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
And the part that's crazy to me is they started out with kind of an interesting premise where the original version of this apparently was basically the Terminator, except with Spider-Man, where this guy's trying to kill pregnant Mama Parker, and so all of these Spider Women are trying to save Mama Parker so that Spider-Man can be born. I don't know if that movie would have been good, but that's a much better premise for a movie than whatever this thing was. From there, it's another one of these Sony Spider-Man-less movies that was chopped to pieces, re-edited. There's ADR to patchwork things together. Nothing makes any sense. There's no chemistry between the girls. Very obviously, this movie was dramatically reworked throughout the entire process, and Dakota Johnson has openly admitted as much.
From what you read and you signed on for Madam Web to what we see on screen, was there a lot of changes or not so much?
There were drastic changes. And I can't even tell you what they were.
And so another movie that was overproduced, and they were overproducing a bad idea into a terrible movie. Today's video is sponsored by Factor. Notice how the days are getting shorter, but your to-do list isn't? Let Factor help you be more efficient. They take shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleaning off your daily list of things to do. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Because Factor's meals are chef-prepared and dietitian-approved, you're going to love not only how Factor's meals taste, but also how they support your goals. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. For me, I either go for keto or protein plus because I'm a low carb, high protein kind of guy. Factor has covered you with 35 different delicious meals every week, over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. And here's a big one in the month of December. Factor is cheaper than dining out or takeout. Head to factormeals.com/50SeanChandler and use code 50SeanChandler to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50SeanChandler at factormeals.com/50SeanChandler to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. Also in last place, The Crow. Now this movie had the unenviable task of being another telling of the Eric Draven Crow storyline, which was told 30 years ago, and Brandon Lee tragically died during the making of that film. And anytime someone dies while making a film, it kind of others that film, puts it in a category where the film itself kind of becomes a tribute to the person and becomes sort of sacred. So that they decided to do another Crow movie that featured Eric Draven, Brandon Lee's version of The Crow, immediately did not sit well with a lot of fans and created a scenario where they had to try and distinguish themselves, but inherently in doing so, I think they set themselves up for failure. Towards the end of this movie, there is this bonkers fight scene at an opera house. And if that's what this movie had been for the whole runtime, this would have been a cool movie. Just don't make it Eric Draven and do a movie that's that opera scene at the end, and this movie would shoot up to our top 3 on this list pretty easily. Granted, the competition here is not very strong. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. They tried to find that angle the original one didn't do, so it really focuses in on the love story of our 2 main characters, and we spend half the movie with them before we get to the murders that lead to him becoming the Crow. And unfortunately, they're just not characters you can root for. It's not really a love story. It's an infatuation story about 2 horribly broken people in a codependent relationship, that the foundation of the film that you would believe that he would trade eternity for her. And then it meanders around trying to set up all this Crow lore. And then finally you get what you wanted and it's cool. And then it kind of dwindles out. But it's simply not a good version of the Crow. And for all of its changes, it just doesn't do anything to leave a mark or in any way improve upon what was done 30 years ago. Number 5, Venom: The Last Dance. There is a significant bump up here that I got a fair amount of enjoyment out of this film simply because I enjoy the Eddie Venom bromance, and the third act of the film with all the symbiotes was a good bit of fun. That, like, if that's what the movie had been from beginning to end, I think this easily would have been the best of the Venom films, and it would have, like, really ended with a nice crescendo. Instead, this movie saves all the stuff that you actually want for, like, the last 20 minutes of the film, and instead we spend all of our time on a road trip. Some of the little bits are fun. Venom Horse is fun. But instead of symbiote fun, we are having Eddie right on the outside of a plane. Instead of symbiote fun and carnage, we are throwing them in a van with hippies and figuring out between Eddie and Venom which one of them likes sing-along time and which one of them doesn't. Instead of interactions with symbiotes and expanding that lore, we're doing a dance number with Miss Chen in Vegas. And it just felt like that was a wasted opportunity because the unique value that your franchise offers is the bromance and the symbiote carnage and fun. And what you gave us instead was generic road trip antics, which we can get in other movies, and we have gotten in other movies. So I just think there was a lot of wasted potential here. It did end on a satisfying enough note. There were things in here that I enjoyed a good bit. The movie overall, big disappointment. Number 4, Joker Folie. Now, this is a tricky one to rank because of the movies on this list, this is the one that mashed on my toes and many other people's toes the most because it is so designed to be a troll of a movie where we're going to follow up a Martin Scorsese-inspired comic book movie with a musical. We're going to follow up this dark crime thriller, taxi driver-inspired film with a courtroom drama. We're going to take our Joker origin story film and we're going to say it's not a Joker origin story film. It is actively designed, no matter what you might have liked about the first film, to just flip everything on its head and agitate you. And it's a movie where they spent a tremendous amount of money on a film that takes place in like 3 locations. It's all dialogue based. So it's not entirely clear, where did the $200 million go? Why did they spend $200 million on it? So it even feels like Todd Phillips was trolling Warner Brothers with this film. All of that said, there is something very interesting about someone doing that with so much studio money and with their own fandom. And there is kind of an idea in here about Arthur is constantly being told who he is by other people. And it's almost as if Joker had that same feeling. Todd Phillips had that same feeling where Arthur Fleck has this identity crisis. And so the second movie is about that. And then the movie itself has its own identity crisis, as its own meta commentary on itself. There's a bunch of wild things that you can explore about what was going on with this film that tickle my brain and are interesting in a way that the movies lower on this list aren't interesting. And there's a professionalism here that's present that is not in the movies lower down below on this list. So there's a lot that I respect here. Not that I enjoyed it. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Remember to share your ranking of the 2024 comic book movies that you've seen. Also, I've done reviews of each of these films with more elaborated thoughts. You can check those out at the link down below or the pinned comment down below or somewhere around here. You can do all of that fun stuff. And we got more end of the year lists coming over the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout. In third place, Hellboy The Crooked Man. Now, this is the movie that I mentioned on Twitter that I was shocked it made it into my top 3 because I don't think it's a particularly good movie, but there's so many awful comic book movies this year that bad ones can make it into the top 3.
You don't have a better bad idea than this?
This is the best bad idea we have, sir. By far.
And this was the film that people are like, no, that has to be last. Madam Web and Kraven are way more watchable than that piece of garbage. That's how weird of a year this is with comic book movies, that people are defending Joker 2 and Kraven the Hunter in order to throw Hellboy at the bottom. It is a battle, a fight to see who is the worst, and there's a lot of strong contenders for the worst comic book movie this year. As for me, this movie didn't bother me. I didn't think it was particularly good. I don't think it made a particular mark. It's very clear that the budget was very limited, and you can see everything that they were doing to try and make the most of the limited budget that they had. But it didn't, I didn't think it was actively bad or anything like that. Certain aspects, I think it brought kind of its own genre to the world of Hellboy. It dropped us into a middle of an adventure. And some of it worked well enough for me without, like I said, leaving any sort of significant mark that I really want to talk about. There's nothing remarkable about the film in any sense of the imagination. Actually, what it felt like to me, and I'll say this actually is a positive, that this felt like a couple episodes of a Hellboy TV show. That's both the best and worst thing about it, is that you kind of go, oh, if this was like episodes 7 and 8 of season 1 of Hellboy, that'd be 2 totally fine episodes of the show that, have some exploration, some character moments, and some action. As a movie, that feels very disappointing, and it feels like, why does it feel like we just dropped into the middle of all of this stuff, and it feels awfully pedestrian for a Hellboy film. But, if it was just a couple episodes, I think it would have been fine. Make of that what you will. Our runner-up, My Hero Academia, you're next. Now, to be perfectly clear, I've never seen an episode of the show. This was my introduction to My Hero Academia. My daughter in particular, my kids, but my daughter in particular are really into My Hero Academia and quite a bit of anime. So anything that they get into that I'm not into, I try to encourage them towards those things to develop their own tastes, and hopefully they can help expose me to more and more things and expand my tastes and my interests. Now, this is based off, My Hero Academia is based off of manga, therefore qualifies as a comic book movie. It was theatrically released, thus it is included here. Now, I wasn't like blown away. I didn't absolutely love it, but I thought it worked well enough as an outsider with very limited knowledge. I was able to watch and be like, I get the appeal here of like this world of superheroes and villains. There's also a lot of soap opera in there of this guy was good, now he's bad. That guy's pretending to be the good guy. How dare he do that? And so you can see how you get swept up in all of the emotions of all of it. And, you know, it keeps crescendoing and building up the tension until you get to this big slam bang finale. So, you know, it's sort of a runner-up on here by default because it was a bad year in comic book movies, but I did enjoy it well enough, and I'm glad that I watched it despite having no proper point of reference going into the film to even be able to remember the characters' names right now or get too much into specifics, because it was a little bit of diving into a world and learning about it fire hose style. As the fan, what did you think about My Hero Academia? You're next.
I thought that it was really good, but I like how after watching all the seasons and them all being connected, watching something that was just one short story, and it was just
self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and end that comes to a conclusion.
Yeah, and it was really good, and I liked all the villains and how it does kind of connect to the story, but not so much that it's not the self-contained thing. So I really liked it. The villains were good. What they did with the
story we're
was
supposed to be offended at the existence of, was it Dark Might? Is that what he's called? So it's connected to, I guess, someone who was a previous hero.
Yeah. So All Might, he is this super famous hero. Everybody loves him, including the main character. There. And so then it's really offensive whenever he says that, yes, I'm All Might, I'm the new person, but he's going against everything that he said in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the scale of, we've got the best My Hero Academia, the worst My Hero Academia, where do you put this one kind of in the spectrum of things?
I've never seen the other movies, but I'd put it if I'm just ranking it from a 1 to 10, 1 is bad, 10 is really good. I'd probably put it at an 8.5.
8.5? That's a nice score for it.
I don't know how I'd make it better, but it wasn't perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But coming in at number 1, The Crow, 1994. This actually was re-released in theaters, so I did see it for its 30th anniversary in the theater with my buddy Andy, and of the comic book movies I saw in the theater, this is my favorite of the bunch. Actually, I can't even say that, because they did those Spider-Man re-releases, so this throws off I just wanted to be fun and cute right here and talk about The Crow and how other re-releases of comic book movies I saw this year were better than the actual releases, but my antics failed here. But if you haven't seen The Crow, it's a fun gothic action revenge film with the performance that will define Brandon Lee's legacy, because he did die while making the film. But yeah, I think it's better than every comic book movie that came out this year. I guess I also saw Spider-Man 2, also better by far than any comic book movie that came out this year. But easily coming in at number 1, Deadpool and Wolverine. There's absolutely no competition here. This one, without question, is my favorite of the comic book movies of the year, as well as the one that I enjoyed the most, which is kind of a bad sign because I'm not as positive on this film as a lot of you are. I think that this is a wildly entertaining film. I loved, seeing Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, Wesley Snipes, Gambit, Jennifer Garner, all of the cameos. I ate all of that up.
Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever.
It made me laugh out loud many times while watching it. It's one of the most entertaining films that was put out this year, and it is a great comic book event in particular for people that watched all of the Fox X-Men movies in the theaters, followed the movie news to remember all the years about Channing Tatum playing Gambit, all of that fun stuff. It was just such a fun event for us. Now, is it a great movie? Is there a great script here? Does it work like on a story level? I don't know about all of that. Like it's basically the plot of an episode of Loki season 1, except with a bigger budget and way more fun cameos. And there's the logic to it, I think, is highly questionable. Everything about the plot, the actual plot mechanics here, not great. But in the execution, they're able to even bring some emotion to it. A lot of that because Hugh Jackman is able to bring that gravitas. He can be funny, but then he can roast Deadpool. That's laugh out loud funny while also being a little bit like gut-wrenching and hurtful because Hugh Jackman is just that good, and he can bring a sincerity that inherently Ryan Reynolds can't because he is just always kind of winking at the camera.
This Wolverine let down his entire world.
So, highly enjoyable film. So many things in it I loved as a comic book fan of the genre, fan of so many of these movies, and made me realize just how much, how fun it sometimes is to even see someone like Jennifer Garner as Elektra. And she's not even in good movies, but it was so great to see her again. Though, I don't think this is one of the great comic book movies of all time or anything like that. It just happened to come out during a terrible year, and it is a very enjoyable film. So without question, by a mile, it comes in at number 1. Be sure to share your list down below. You can check out my full reviews of these movies down below in the comment section. More videos like this are coming out over the next few days and weeks and everything like that. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.